Ta-da! We did it. Technology is amazing. Hi, guys. Welcome to Finding Your Light Friday. I'm super excited to have you. We join every Friday to share tips, tricks, tools, practitioners that are doing awesome things in the wellness space so that you can shine brighter. And I'm super excited to have my guest today. We're going to really dive into starting this year off right. What can we let go of and what can we create more of so that we can actually have a thriving life this year? And I think everybody's ready for it. After last year, just making it through seems really big. So,
Absolutely.
Will you introduce yourself?
Sure. I am Anat Peri. I'm the founder and facilitator of Training Camp for the Soul, which is a transformational company. So we work with growth seekers in unblocking them from their limiting beliefs and really tapping into their fullest potential.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you've had a lot of work recently.
Yeah, it's been great.
That's awesome.
Super grateful.
I love starting the conversation out with people kind of diving into their story and us understanding like how you got onto this path. I found that so many of us that are working in the personal growth space, of course, have come to it because of our own personal growth. Many times tragedy or interesting road of on our knees moments. And I was kind of reading your bio, and it sounds like very similarly, you kind of went through your dark night of the soul and have learned some lessons and then wanted to share them.
Yeah, definitely went through a few dark nights of the soul over the years. So actually yesterday was my 16-year anniversary since I got on my self-development path.
Nice.
So crazy. I think it's been 16 years, but there was a part of me that in my 20s really loved to support my friends. Like they'd come to me for coaching. Mm-hmm. God knows what I said to them then. I probably wouldn't say it now, but for some reason, like there was just innate wisdom and gift because it gave them peace of mind because they kept coming back. Yeah. So there was that part of me and desired me to like study psychology, although I didn't want the 8 years of schooling. So I didn't go that route. Mm-hmm. And then self-development found me anyway. And it was really about my own healing journey. In my 20s, I struggled a lot in many areas of my life, from self-doubt, low self-esteem, to codependency, to like fear of failure, struggling with hopping from career to career, like just being a lost soul, really. Yeah. And I started on the path and explored many different modalities. And what I recognized early on is, wow, I'm a great coach. Mm-hmm. And what took a lot longer was getting the right tools to be my first client, right? To really heal myself. And I'd say it in the first 8 years of my self-development journey, I developed a lot as a leader and as a coach. Mm-hmm. But my life still looked the same. Yeah. So shit was still hard. I was still falling into the wrong relationships, still broke as a joke, in debt, fighting with my mom all the time, like all of it. So it was like, okay, I knew a lot. I had so much awareness, mm-hmm. but it didn't make a difference. Yeah. Life still looked the same. And so even though there was a deep desire for me to make change and support others, I knew that I wasn't willing to do that if I couldn't do that for myself. That lacked integrity, mm-hmm. and that I'd be leaving myself behind in that. So I just continued chugging along and exploring different avenues, from plant medicine, which I'd say was the first time that I experienced being in my body. Like, there's this like thing of like emotions and body. There isn't just like mindset, but there's all these sensations and energy and all the ways that the body releases. And it blew my mind, no pun intended. And I actually thought that it was all I needed. And then I thought I arrived and got into a relationship only for the same shit to show up again. But that was a gift, because it led me to one of my first mentors that was a body mind psychologist. And he said to me, he's like, "You're different." He's like, you have a lot of awareness of your stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm aware of all the weeds. I just haven't had the right tools to get to the root of it. And he goes, "You're here for finishing touches." I'm like, please, yes. I'm so over trimming weeds. Like this is exhausting and really what's the word for it? Discouraging.
Yeah.
And I imagine a lot of people feel that way. Like those of us that are committed, that are willing to dig, to look and all that, to put in the effort, and to not be met with the right tools that actually can support us in having that lasting transformation. I was just like, I'm exhausted. I'm so over this. Please, just like I'll fully commit. And I did. And it was not a walk in the park. It was the first time that I realized that true transformation is a death and rebirth, is not a walk in the park on a sunny San Diego day. That it is sometimes running through a burning forest and there's a dragon to slay on the way, and that you have to feel it to heal it. There's so much, and there was just so much there that even though I processed through that. When I was doing plant medicines and stuff, it didn't complete everything. It was like body was releasing, the weeds were coming out, but I didn't know what was coming out consciously. It was like, okay, the energy is moving, but if you're not aware what the limiting belief is, then you don't know what behaviors now to go shift so that you can integrate the new. And so even though I was having great catharsis, releases, crying, purging, shaking, all of it, I'd get back into my life operating and thinking the same way. Yeah. And the same stuff will come back. So this was the first time that I was like, oh, okay, I am the healer. And these are just really great tools. And I now understand myself consciously enough. And so after working with him for 4 months, it was the first time that I felt confidence, courage, like freedom, and desire to play, like just to be like that. My inner child was happy again. She was out of the closet or, the covers, all sad, and just ready to trust the world, to step out, to play, to be creative. And so I did that for 6 months. And then I was ready. I felt like, okay, I now feel that I'm ready to guide and support others. And that was almost 6 years ago.
Oh, that's an amazing story. There's so many good nuggets in there that I want us to explore. One of them is, and this is something that that was in your pre-interview paperwork, was the importance of integration. And I really think that was that nugget that he gave you, which was, it's awesome to have these peak experience, giant transformational mental shifts. I mean, we have them in the ketamine clinic all the time. People come out of the chair and they're like, I saw it differently. I get it. I'm the crux of my suffering. I can change this. Da, da, da. But the reality is, unless you have a plan of action of what that actually means in your life, like how is that showing up? What does that look like every day? What is the pattern you're breaking? What are you going to replace it with? Like, it's really not going to change. Like, you're going to have these great things and maybe you'll feel better for a while. But if you go put yourself back in that shit soup that you were in that created the issues in the first place, all that repatterning will just come back. It's not like it's like gone forever, even though that's what everybody wants. They want to go have a peak experience and have the aha moment on the mountaintop. And then they come back and they're like, I am now an awoken human. And thus I do not need So how do you help people now in your work with that really important piece, which I think is the missing piece, I would say in general, in all self-work, whether it be in the wellness.
I was going to say that.
Oh yeah, it's everything. It is the thing that everybody is looking
Yeah, I mean, peak experiences don't only happen with plant medicine, right? They happen at like a Tony Robbins, seminar or any workshop, or sometimes, listening to a great podcast or reading a great book. You could have that like aha moment. It's like, what are you doing with it now? Because this isn't a movie for your entertainment. It's really it is like the completion of what we at Training Camp for the Soul talk about as the 5 stages of healing, or the 5 stages of transformation. If you are not replacing and planting a new seed wherever that old weed was, then the old is just going to come back. And if you're not watering that seed, then it's not growing. So the starting to take action in alignment with it. So it is integrated in every module, every week. Like, in our 90-day program, people are practicing this every single week. There is just nothing else matters. They could be like, oh my God, I had this great release. And I'm like, okay, now what? What's possible now?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, this is possible. Great. How are you integrating that? Oh, I'm going to repeat it every day. I'm like, well, that's good. Like, repetition is great, that now you believe that, I am vulnerable, or I am a success, or, I am worthy. Yes, repetition of that is something. But if you can take a specific action in your life, like someone who believes that they are vulnerable, they are worthy, how does that person go act now? So you got to get on stage and you got to practice and act that way. Otherwise, nothing changes. So it is the key. 100%. And it's what I think frustrates me or disappoints me with the industry.
Completely.
Yeah. And people that do plant medicine now, I always say to them, and even when I did do plant medicine, it's like as if I knew, like, okay, like, great experience. Now, how do I bring this into my life? Like, how do I take action? Because I really want to bring this into this reality now.
Yeah. And it's looking at each piece of those things, like, as a tool, which is the word that you use. And that's something that we use all the time, is like, we get to build your toolbox. And guess what? Your toolbox gets to look completely different from everybody else's, because there is no one way. There is no right way. There is the ways in which that work for you. And a lot of that I think the fun part about it is like experimenting and figuring out what tools do work for you. But the process of that is finding a lot of tools that don't really land. And so how did you feel like you kind of wove that path? You said at the beginning that you tried a lot of different things. How do you go through when you're discovering? Because I think right now is that time for a lot of people. They're like, I'm going to try new things. It's a new year, new you.
Yeah.
New you thing. But they want to try stuff. And I think some people get disheartened when stuff doesn't work. And there's a part of it that's like, push through the uncomfortable. And then there's parts of it that's like, listen to your intuition. Some things are not for you. And I think that editing process is something that's important for everybody to learn. And I would love to hear your thoughts on how to help people with that.
So I agree with you 100%. People should lead with trusting their intuition. If you're looking at what other people are doing, especially like on the grand scale, whether it's for healing or for your business, like, oh, I should do reels on Instagram. I should do this because it's working for everyone else. Then you're not trusting that inner knowing. So even in healing, same thing. Like, you have to feel that connection to it. And it is frustrating, and there is patience that is required. And I think it's important to work with someone that's already gotten there. Yeah, most likely you're not going to get there just on your own.
Yeah.
Even, we do master classes and free support calls. We give people a taste of our work. Like, I give a lot of tools away, and because I know some people either aren't ready or can't afford it, don't have the time. Fine, then start to practice there on your own. But to really be proactive instead of reactive to tending to all parts of the weeds in your garden, so to speak. You want to be in a structure. You want that support, and you want to work with someone that gets you, has been there, and has a track record. And so really looking at that, because there's a lot available, and especially with the internet and social media these days, and the coaching industry blowing up. Everybody, wants to be a coach. It's like, oh, you do ayahuasca one time and you think I am Jesus,
I'm a
shaman. Exactly. And so really doing your due diligence, doing your homework to make sure that it's a fit in that way. And then once it is, expect there to be resistance. So like when there's when my clients experience resistance, I'm like, yeah. You're out of the 13 weeks of the program, I'm like, this is exactly where you're supposed to be. You're in week 2, 3. Yeah. Your ego, your identity does not want you to do this.
Hold on.
So when they're like, I'm experiencing resistance, I'm like, yeah. And can you feel that resistance? Can you identify so with it that you're not resisting the resistance or rejecting it or wanting or expecting that it's not there? So expect that there will be resistance. And then, like you said, commit to pushing through, to staying committed and to being coachable. I had one of my teachers a long time ago said to me, if you want to know why you're not getting the results that you want, and let's face it, we're all doing self-development because we want some area of our life to work better, to look different. But if you're not getting the results that you want, one of two things is happening. You're either not doing the work and you're lying to yourself and others about it, or you're not doing the right work.
Yeah.
And so if my clients are not getting results at a certain point, I remind them of that. And I ask them, I was like, are you doing the work the way that it's designed? Because this process, hundreds of people have gone through it. It works if you do it the way it's designed.
Yeah.
So I think if there's a proven system that others have gotten results with, it does work for everyone. And most of the time, those that say it doesn't, it's because they're either not doing it or they're half-assing it, and they're not doing the right work.
Yeah. I think that there are so many important points there. The one thing, and I like this from the beginning thing that you said, which is you're walking the walk. And with the explosion of the coaching movement, secret, not everybody's doing that. I mean, that's just the reality, is there's a lot of people that are, and there's a caveat here. The caveat is, of course, coaches are normal people. People struggle, people have life, I'm not expecting
human.
Yeah, we're human. Not everybody, I'm not expecting anybody to go through and say, my life is perfect. Actually, I find that the biggest red flag for bullshit ever is when people are like, look, my life is perfect. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not. I know it's not.
The first thing I say on the very first call with a new group, a new program, I say, so take me and Chris, because we co-facilitate together, take us off the pedestal. If you have me on a pedestal right now, please take me off. I am very much human. I am still on this journey. A lot of shit works. I've gotten a ton of results, and then life still happens. And when it does, I will share it here. I will let you guys know. So 100%, it's so important that we keep walking our walk and using the tools that we teach, practicing what we preach.
Completely, because I think that's actually what binds us to our clients, is them understanding, like, we've not only been there, we're still human and we're going through it. And then, that makes people relatable, and that inauthenticity, I think, is something people can typically read. But I do think finding something, especially a person, whether that be a specific mentor or a specific coach or a group program, is so important if you think you really want to get to a different space. Because again, people think they can go through this on their own, or they can get better without people knowing. This is actually this is what I did. I tried on my personal growth path to get better before I told anybody that I was struggling, because then I could tell them I succeeded without telling them I actually ever struggled. I was like, I just want to share the part where I did really good. I didn't want to share the shit show that was actually happening. But interestingly, of course, I ended up having an on my knees moment where the universe was like, oh girl, we're going to break you down. Otherwise, you better open your damn mouth. And that's what happened. You know, that's when I had an eating disorder for 15 years. Nobody knew. I'd been married. I'd moved around the world. I mean, I was a chef. I was in culinary school. I mean, nobody knew in my entire life. And it was this thing that I swore that if anybody found out, my life would be over. I was a wellness professional. I was like an expert in my area, and I was killing myself. You know, and it was like the scariest thing that if anybody would knew. Of course, as soon as I came out and told everybody, my whole world opened up, because it was like, oh, like so many people struggle with that. Thank you for being brave. Can you help me? And then following my path of like healing for the last 8 years, that's what people are so thankful for me for, is because I've shared a very scary thing that I thought I was going to be able to get over. But the reality is I couldn't heal myself in the dark. I mean, you cannot get better living in a cave, pretending like everything's going to get better by itself, and that something miraculous is going to happen and you're going to wake up and you're going to be healed. You're going to have to come out and finally be honest. Number one, with yourself, I think, is a huge one. Yeah. And then with those around you, at the minimum, with those around you that love you, and hopefully to find a support system so that somebody can support you. Because I was, of course, going to therapy, lying to my therapist. That's really good.
Well, there you go. Why aren't you getting the results? Because you're lying about it.
Great use of funds. Go to your therapist who's supposed to help you while you lie to them about what's wrong with you. I would love to hear how your program works. Like how does somebody work with y'all? What does the 90 days look like?
Yeah, awesome. So our whole foundation is about taking you through the 5 stages of healing, right? That's the tool, that's the process. And the areas of the garden that we're looking at is what you learned from mom and dad in the first 7 years of your life. Because most of what's showing up right now, or will show up, because it may be dormant and just hasn't kicked in yet, depending on what stage of life you're in, you inherited. You learned by what you saw, what you heard, and what you felt energetically from mom and dad, whether they were there or absent. For those that maybe, grew up with a single mom, there's still a learning that you get, or that you that a child needs to develop from the energetics of a father compared to mother. So we look at the 5 areas of childhood development, where if you had functional behavior in these areas, you can function as an adult and you can produce results and life would work. And when I tell you these areas, you're going to be like, yes, of course. So we look at self-esteem, expressing your needs and wants, also knowing what you need and want and giving yourself what you need and want, limits and boundaries with yourself and others, connection to yourself and others, and responsibility. And I don't mean responsibility like burden or taking everything on. I mean responsibility like owning that, like everything that's occurring in your life is like you're creating. So we look at if we were to divide the garden up to 10 sections, 5 of which you learned from mom, 5 of which you learned from dad, and we tackle one area of the garden at a time. We always start with mom, because mom represents an extension of yourself. And the reason that is the second that you were born and mom held you, she said, "Sweetheart, I'm your mommy." And you heard wah, 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 wah. And you didn't know that you were looking at your mother. But what you did know is energy, that what you were feeling. And, you know, children there, they can feel. They're feeling a lot more than we are as adults. That the energy you felt familiar. It was like, oh, this feels like home. It feels like the same energy I just spent 9 or so months in. And in that moment, you form this relationship, this bond of like, oh, this is me. Mom is me. I am mom. This is just an extension of me. And so mom becomes the role model for everything related to yourself. How you treat yourself, how you talk to yourself, how you see yourself, either by how she treated you as the extension or how she modeled it for you. And so we start with that, because until you have a new foundation, a connection to yourself, you can't step into the world. And so we move through those 5 areas every week and look at what it looks like to have healthy, functioning self-esteem, to what are the behaviors dysfunctionally. Because sometimes people think, they're like, oh yeah, I'm good with self-esteem, or I'm good with, you know, limits and boundaries. And then they look at like all the list of behaviors and they're like, oh, I do that. Oh, I do that. Oh my God. So it's like, we start with like the awareness, you know, the 5 stages of healing. Stage 1 is awareness. So they become aware of what they didn't know, the weeds they weren't aware of in their garden. And then we work them into getting to accept and commit to it, which is stage 2. And I think this is where we were talking before about the importance of working with someone, having someone guide you and hold your hand, coach you, be accountable to you. It's because a lot of times this is where the resistance shows up, especially if it means in order for me to have this, I have to forgive my asshole father. Like, oh no, he was definitely a jerk or whatever, right? And there's this resistance to exploring it and looking at it any other way, and they stop right there. And the identity just goes back to pattern. So getting people to feel safe and getting them past that resistance to stage 3, which is getting to the root of it. So there's many different practices, and we use a lot of techniques that I was never trained in. I think just over years of coaching and practicing, I tapped into a lot of these things, which is a lot of somatic healing. So really getting to the root of it, which lies in the emotional body, in the energetic body, in your sensations. And a lot of people are still relating to their stuff as the story of it, which is very surface. If we think about the weed in the garden, or then they're relating to it as the label on the emotion. So the labeled emotion, well, this makes me anxious or angry or happy or sad. And if it's quote unquote labeled as a good emotion, then, oh, okay, I'll go there. And if it's not, then something's wrong. And then the mind goes to, well, we got to fix this because this is wrong. And the truth is that it's just all emotions are just energy in motion. And so we work at the deepest layer, which is being with it as the felt sense. So you're labeling it as anxiety, but anxiety and excitement feel pretty much the same in the body. So let's get rid of the labels and let's be with it at the level of sensation. Can you describe to me, where do you feel this in your body? Oh, it's in my solar plex. Does it have a size, a color, a shape, a texture? Is it moving? Is it hollow? And what happens is the mind lets go, and then you're so focused on being with it as an energy that now the body can take over and start to discharge it and bring healing to it, because our bodies are brilliant. I mean, they birthed us, right? Like our mom, and our moms didn't have to think much about that. When you cut yourself, you think it's the Band-Aid and ointment that does the healing? No, I think it's the reason that we feel pain when we cut ourselves, pain, sensation, when we cut ourselves or burn ourselves, is I believe that it's our body's brilliant mechanism of letting the body know that this area needs healing. And that if there wasn't this uncomfortable sensation there, that it wouldn't know. But the body's actually the one doing the healing. And so what my clients have been able to experience is how easy and simple it is when you surrender to the body, and that the body can heal itself, and that you are the healer, and that all the mind just complicates it, just makes stories about it, and disconnects and makes it wrong. And it's not wrong. It's just, this is it. This is the energy. It's not wrong energy. It's the energy that's there. So focus on it, be with it, and then it starts to discharge in many different ways. The body releases by yawning, burping, tremoring, crying, catharsis, like screaming sometimes. I mean, think about it. If what you're harboring is anger, and what you'd label as anger, how else would that want to be expressed? If not with either punching something or having a good scream. And, there's layers to it. So sometimes underneath that anger is a lot of sadness of what that little girl didn't get that she really needed from mom. And so then the tears come, right? So you'll know, because the body will discharge it in all of its different ways. And laughing attacks, that's the best one. People start laughing. Yeah. Oh gosh, it's fun. And that one, to witness that, when clients witness that with each other, it's everyone starts to laugh, right? But that happens as well. As sometimes you'll sit there and you'll just yawn 40, 50 times. That's the body discharging it. And I know that these are the experiences I had under plant medicine. And when I realized, and then when I started having these experiences with these tools, and my clients do as well, and they'll say, this is like ayahuasca without the ayahuasca. I'm like, that's because it's not the ayahuasca. The ayahuasca just drops you into your body. It's your body. It's that brilliant. You just disconnected from it, stopped trusting it, and started trying to fix it here. So when you release, then there is a sense of spaciousness, of room for something new. And that's the weed's been out. Now, what do you want to plant in here? What do you want to declare? And sometimes you'll start to hear yourself. There's access to saying something that you never said before. Yeah. And that's like stage 3 is the releasing, and stage 3 is identifying, stage 4 is the releasing and then replacing. What's possible and available now that wasn't before, and declaring that as a new way of being, as a declaration, as a statement, as a mantra, which is great, good start. And then stage 5, the most important, how are you going to integrate this? And sometimes it's obvious. Yeah. And sometimes, like for me, one of my biggest one was vulnerability. It wasn't modeled to me. I had no idea what it looked like. And when I finally cleared whatever was in the way, that I could start to say, I'm safe to be vulnerable. I am vulnerable. I was like, okay, now is the challenge. What does that look like? Like, TV doesn't model it well. Like, what is it? It took, and so that was like a journey of discovery for me. And so I say in stage 5, it may be obvious, or it may be where the learning now begins. Something I notice in self-development or when people try and do it on their own is they go from stage 1 to stage 5. And they skip the middle. So they become aware of an issue and they're like, oh, Amazon.com. Okay, let me look up this book on how to be vulnerable or how to, have more intimacy with my partner. And they get the book and it's got a lot of great information in there. But you read it, yet you can't act like it yet. Why? Because even though you learned, well, sit there and, gaze into your partner's eyes and share what you feel, right? The gremlins, the limiting beliefs, the weeds that are there pop up and say, no, it's not safe. Men will hurt you. Don't trust others, right? All the limiting beliefs, all the traumas, whatever it is that you experience in childhood pops up and sabotages. And so that's, I think, the frustration a lot of people have is that they identify a weed, they think they could just trim it and read a great book or listen to a great podcast and transform. Yeah. And they don't. And so what is beautiful though is when you do go through all the stages, this is where now go pick up that book on vulnerability, go do an intimacy retreat, because now there's room for you to integrate, to actually take that information in and act from it.
Yeah. I love that process, because I do think that's so true, is that middle part, which is like, the awareness, of course, is the first one, which a lot of people don't even have that when it comes to what are the patterns. Unless you've had a lot of therapy or done some work, a lot of people don't understand what patternings they got from their parents. Like they just think that this is who I am. This is who I am. And they skip to 5, they read the book, it doesn't work. And they go, see, this is who I am.
This is who I am. And they're reactive to what shows up in life. And I'm 41. So I've lived a good amount of life to know that there's many different experiences at different stages. And there's certain stages I haven't experienced yet, but I know that when I will, there's dormant weeds that will suddenly come to life. And then you have to react to it. And then you realize, oh shit, I have a problem. And that's what's happening is people think that this is who I am. And then some roadblock shows up for them, some trigger, some loss of power. And they're like, oh, let me go read the book. And I'm all about, you know what, you can approach life that way, but it's going to be painful, and it's going to keep slowing you down in achieving what you want. Instead, rip the Band-Aid off quickly, devote 90 days, 6 months, a year and a half between, all of integration time, right? To fully know thyself and transform and come out of living life constantly in survival of what you hope doesn't happen, that happened in childhood, that you locked in that box, to being like, I'm a creator. Okay, what do I want to create next? Life is a playground. Let's go play and live from our heart as opposed to our ego.
Oh, so important. And I think, that's a big thing that people, they want that. Like they want it. And then they're like, oh, but maybe that's not achievable for me. And there's so many background, these limiting beliefs that are running in people's backgrounds consistently. And they actually have no awareness for why that's making them make certain decisions. It's interesting. You said, you're going through life and your different stages and things come up. I had done a ton of self-work. I got with a man, he has teenage kids. And so I am a stepmom. Well, hilariously, guess what? Some real interesting stuff came up being a stepmom to boys. And it was like this hilarious, I mean, kids to me are like the most hilarious little mirrors of self-growth you can ever have. It's like, oh my God, look at my shit right here in front of me at the breakfast table. But it was, again, it was like this real, I I play in that space because I've done it so much now that I think when my stuff comes up now, I'm like, well, isn't this exciting? Like,
well, you have great tools.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, the opportunity is, let's be proactive. Let's go spend 90 days uncovering all the weeds in your garden. Let's completely transform it. And now when a storm comes, you got the right tools. You're ready. It doesn't set you back 6 months. It doesn't have you, end your marriage, break up, all that. Do something that later you're like, oh shit, I totally regret that. Yeah. So that, it's like a little bit of time diving in where it's going to be uncomfortable and painful, but it's going to save you a lifetime of, oh shit, I fucked up moments.
Yeah. And you're doing it in a space, in a container that is very well guarded, that you have really good support in, that you're around people that understand, and you're in a group that you're like, oh, I'm not doing this alone, which is like, I'm not a lunatic. Okay, everybody is struggling. That is super, the group situation of healing, I find so transformative for people, because there's a lot of loneliness when you're struggling, because you think, you're like, I'm a lunatic. There's something wrong with me. And then you kind of just are like, oh no, this is just part of the human experience. This is people being people,
100%. That's why I don't work with people one-on-one. I'm like, no, trust me. You're going to have more fun in group. I believe from experience, because I started out doing some one-on-one and then I moved into group, and I will never go back, is you'll have more fun. And that we could go deeper and faster in group than we can one-on-one. Yeah. Because like you said, sometimes we think we're the only one, and we have shame around that. So we won't even tell our coach. We'll lie to our therapist about it, right? But when someone else in the group has the courage and speaks the same thing or something even worse, it gives you permission. You're like, okay, I can deal with this. So that's part of it, as well as sometimes someone else will bring something up that you didn't even realize, and you become aware of something. And so just deeper, faster, and more fun. And I mean, people that have done my programs, they become soul family. Like they visit each other, they've partnered in business together. It's a real beautiful community.
So let's get into, do you have a new group starting soon? Where are you in your
Yeah, we have a new one starting February 18th.
Oh, very soon.
And next week we have our masterclass. So if people want to come and get an understanding and context of the 5 stages and the work and the background of it, as well as in that masterclass, we take a client through the experience. So you get to witness someone going through it without it being you. And then we'll spend the next 4 weeks giving people a weekly support call. So anyone can come for 90 minutes, and Chris and I guide you through our process and give you great tools that you can keep, and a taste of what's possible working with us. So I really want people to have that experience before they even commit. Like, come have a taste before you commit to the whole meal.
Yeah. And that's, again, like what we talked about at the beginning, like trusting your intuition and knowing what providers and what modalities are right for you. Go in, try it out. And I will say, not a lot of programs do that. A lot of people will do webinars, and so you'll get a bit of a taste of like what they're about. But I love that you give so much upfront, because I think that's really important for people to have the buy-in, and because you want it to be a hell yes. To be able to be coachable, you have to be fully invested, especially if you're going to do actual challenging personal work.
Oh yeah.
There's no point in filling the hell up unless you're freaking ready.
I let them know. I was like, this is not something we're selling you into. Yeah. Because this isn't going to work for you. Like when I don't do my sales calls anymore, but when I used to, I'd say in that call, I'd say, Allie, repeat after me. This is not going to work for me. And he'd be like, huh? I'm like, just say it. This is not going to work. Like, this is not going to work for me. Okay. Like, this is only going to work with you. Like, you have to do your part. It's like a gym. You can have a gym membership, nicest gym, best equipment, cleanest locker rooms. But if you don't show up and do the right work, you're not getting in shape. Exactly. So I really want the people that are at the hell yes. And I know that even at that hell yes, resistance will come up. And that is what we're there for those moments. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Do you have any final thoughts or things that you want to share?
Yeah, I'd love to give people a little tool that they can take home with them. And this is a practice that you could do anywhere, anytime, for as long as you need. And it could support you in shifting your state, really creating a state change. And I coined it popcorn gratitude. So I know a lot of people have a gratitude practice where they take their journal out and they write what they're grateful for. And that's good. But I find it's a little too cerebral at times. You're just writing it. This is about feeling it. And so how this came to be was I was driving one day about 4 years ago, I think. And I was single at the time. I was kind of dating this guy and I was so frustrated with him. But I realized that he introduced me to someone who's become a dear friend of mine. Maybe you know her, Christine Hassler.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, of course, you know Christine.
Here. We've become walking buddies.
Yeah. So, I'm like, you know what? He sucks, but I wouldn't become friends with Christine if it wasn't for that. And I said out loud, I go, thank you. And then what sparked into my mind was my friend Tanya, who is the reason I moved from New York to San Diego. And I was like, thank you. And then all these other things started popping into my awareness of like where I'm at in my life now and what led me here. And I kept saying, thank you out loud, that by the time I got to my destination, I was high. I thought I smoked. I had like the biggest smile on my face. And so it's popcorn gratitude. It's about, closing your eyes, and it's going to, like popcorn, it's going to start off really slow at first, where not a lot's going to come to your awareness, but then a lot, it's going to start to pop quicker, whether it's the yummy breakfast you had this morning or, your parents giving birth to you, to, your business partner. Anything and everything could come in there. And your only job is to let it pop into your awareness and say, thank you out loud. The vibration of thank you. Try it for at least 2 minutes. And especially when you feel down in the dumps or like life is not happening for you, but it's happening to you. Make yourself some gratitude popcorn and shift that back to gratitude.
I love that. That's actually similar to a practice that I do with anytime like I get frustrated. Me and my partner have the most insanely crazy like soul connection relationship, but we're still normal people. So we have that frustration moment. And I have trained myself, if I get frustrated with him, that I say like 5 or 6 things that I'm thankful for about him. And it completely fixes it, like in a minute. Like, it's like, oh, I'm sorry he didn't do this thing. But do you remember when he had how he shows up and how he does this, and it's like, okay, thanks. Reframe. But I love the idea of just allowing it to pop up because
then you could do it anywhere.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Anywhere, in the shower, on the toilet, driving in the car. Just don't close your eyes for that one.
Yeah, don't.
But absolutely anywhere, anytime.
Yeah.
So I hope people enjoy that tool.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate you sharing that. And thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. And
absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Super happy you're here. And thanks guys for joining us today. We'll see you next week. Bye.